Welcome to The Grant, the EU funding podcast. The Grant. My name is Niels Tudor Winter, and I'm the creator, editor, and host of The Grant. The Grant is an independent podcast initiative with the ambition to dig into all corners of the EU R&D funding system on topics of interest for the full EU R&D funding community. Exploitation is a generic activity that most EU funding schemes have as an obligatory element. And the EU Commission has stepped up the importance of this over the last 10 to 15 years. In other words, a lot of you out there are working with this on a regular basis. In my implementation series, where I carve out all the bits of implementing an EU project, I have reached this crucial element. So, it's time to look at business models, market analysis, and product development towards the market. My expert guest for this important episode is Ana-Marija Špicnagel, director in the grants consultancy company IPS Konzalting, with a career-long experience with exploitation. And it is all there, defining exploitation, the different forms of exploitation, when and how to start the activities, different partner perceptions of exploitation, ownership and IPR, and finally, of course, an exchange on the issue of why so many projects fail to exploit results after the project has ended. Now, this is a must-listen episode for all project coordinators and exploitation work package leaders. Please enjoy. Welcome to The Grant, the EU funding podcast. Now, I don't even remember when I started this implementation series. It's been a while, and it takes long to make these series because I insist on breaking these processes down into individual episodes. And most podcasters they would probably have chosen to make communication, dissemination, exploitation into one episode, but not The Grant. Not yours sincerely. I break it up to make it clear for everybody out there what's going on in these different corners. Now, the implementation series has been going on for a while, and I am continuously building up, so I eventually will end up with one series that you can listen to from episode number 1 to episode, 20, and check and see how it is to implement a project. That's the condition for what we're going to do here today. Now, we're going to talk about exploitation, and I have one of my wonderful, almost regulars in for today. I've been looking so much forward to this conversation. Anna, welcome. Or Ana-Marija, because
hello.
In between us is Anna. For the guests, it's Ana-Marija Špicnagel.
Hello, Niels. Hello, everyone. It's nice to be back in the podcast.
Indeed. And what we did a wonderful 3-episode idea development concept series back in the winter. And I recommend everybody to go and listen to that. I'll put a link also in the episodes on the episode site so you can check it out. Because that was nice. That was very, very nice where we together went through how you work with this. Now today we're going to talk about exploitation.
The trendy word
Mm-hmm.
that everyone is talking about.
But before we get to that, give the listeners the standard introduction to Ana-Marija Špicnagel.
It's a difficult one. But when we are talking about the research projects, what normally people say that I'm a Google Translate, because I translate a lot of different research results into the practical solutions. And that's also kind of connected with the exploitation segment. I'm the director of IPS Konzalting. We are a consultancy company. We are helping researchers and institutions and farmers and SMEs to get the funding, and also to make sure that the project is not just written down, but that it also gets approved and that it also gets executed without the financial corrections. So that's maybe a long story short. We work with partners across whole Europe. We have more than 150 partners across 29 countries within and outside the Europe.
Yeah. Experienced you are. This is also why I reached out to check if you wanted to cover this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's just step, because this conditions, I already laid them out for you out there. This episode is a guidance episode. These series are meant for you out there that sit and work with these things every day, that you can go in as a library to my series, whatever series. I also have a couple of others. Go into them, and then you can go to the episode that suits the corner that you are curious about or want some critical mass, and get some feedback and guidance on how to work with that. So that's the baseline for what we're doing here. So that's what it's going to be the authoritative episode on exploitation, Anna, not to put any pressure on you.
Of course, never a pressure.
So that's that. So let's take it from the baseline. So the definition of exploitation, Anna.
Yeah. So I would say that it's a very buzzword that everyone is talking about, but not always fully understanding the full concept behind. Because there is quite a lot of definitions about the communication and dissemination, and then exploitation comes as a third unwanted brother or sister. But actually, it's in the concrete use of the project results. So each and every project should be, first of all, about the exploitation, what we are working on and how it can help to the society, to the research community, to farmers, to researchers, policymakers, whoever. But it's about the concrete results that someone actually wants to buy, that someone actually wants to use, that applies for them in the policy. And this is very important because there is no easy way to get there. If you want to do the exploitation properly, you have to fully understand the whole environment in which the project is running. Mm-hmm. And sometimes when I'm explaining this distinction, let's say, between different elements, so we can say the communication is telling everyone, I'm doing this. So we are bragging, look at us. The dissemination is about sharing results in the field. So here is what we developed. And the exploitation thing is when someone actually starts to using it. Now I have the benefit of using your results. And then there is a fourth thing, which is called impact. And that is actually the long-term change that comes out of the exploitation of project results.
Mm-hmm. You can also say that dissemination is teaching the target group how to use what you're developing, right? There's communication share. Look,
yeah.
And then you have trainings, for instance, on how to use a specific technology. It's the easiest picture to give people. And then exploitation is how to earn money on it.
Exactly. You said it very well. The dissemination, we could say it's like the megaphone, it gives to the larger audience how it's working and why they should be using it. And then the exploitation is really, are you using it or not? So from that point, think of it like it's a wedding, let's say. So the communication is save the date, okay? Mm-hmm. The dissemination is the invitation to the guests, and exploitation is whether the guest will be showing up or not at the wedding. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So from that point, it's really important that you understand that we are doing it for that purpose, because there is quite a lot of calls happening at the same time, quite a lot of maybe projects running at the same time. And sometimes we got stuck in a feeling that you have to produce deliverables, you have to meet the milestones, but there is even greater thing, and that is actually the purpose of the project. What do we want to achieve with it? How we want that the results are sustainable and living after the project lifetime. And that can be done only through the exploitation pathway. In other words, we need to find a way to make it sustainable even when the funding stops, even when the consortium meetings are not held anymore, even when you don't have every day spending time on the project.
Is there a difference in exploitation in different funding programs? How it's being?
Of course. What we still can say about the exploitation is that, of course, there are also different forms of exploitation. And for example, it can be a commercial exploitation. It can be connected with the policy or regulatory aspect. It can be even organizational, educational, and so on. Another important aspect is that when we are checking the call, we also need to better understand what is the final impact and outcome that we want to obtain. Because in some calls, if we are talking about high TRL solutions or TRL levels of development, then of course it means directly path to the market. So it's not sufficient anymore that you just have a pilot that has been tested, that you are, for example, producing some fertilizer or some equipment and in the lab scale, but you really need to put it on the market. The market needs to accept it. And in other calls, it can be something that might not seem as exploitation in the first hand, like regulatory recommendations. Like different research papers or a new project maybe that needs to be developed, that could be developed as a follow-up of this project. So it really depends from the TRL level that we want to reach.
Yeah, because it's getting things out there to work in the actual real world. Of like whatever has been developed. So that's it's the easiest way to perceive this is, of course, from technical development. It's a product, but it's in principle, as you say here, you have different forms, and the most important thing in that respect is to think of it as the thing where it becomes operational. The way it was thought when you wrote your proposal up against the call text of what will this impact is the final end station, right? But exploitation is the tool, so to say, to making the impact, because that's where it starts to be working in the real world.
That's true. And also, so the reason why I think am invited for this to talk about is because we are working on this topic as well as the business planning and modeling very narrowly, let's say, for the last 13 years. And so from that point, there has been quite a lot of different situations and projects in which I had to assess the key exploitable results, not only in the phase of the proposal writing, but also throughout the project lifetime, because that's actually, let's be honest, an ongoing work. When you are writing a proposal, you see, from my experience, what I could tell, you see only maybe 30 to 45% of the total key exploitable results that you will be producing throughout the project lifetime. And that's a good starting point. But then when the project officially starts, when it really gets in full capacity, then you need to observe it once again and once again to better understand what else the project consortium is actually doing and how to put it in terms of the key exploitable results. Let me give you an example. We have been participating in one research project. I can also mention the name. It's Horizon Project Live Seeding. It's about the organic seed production. And within that project, we detected like 4 or 5 main categories of exploitation results, like plant reproductive materials, tools, training materials. And that was it, And after we started to work concretely on the key exploitable results, we detected more than 44 different key exploitable results. So then you can see actually the full scope of what was happening in the team, what kind of results they have been producing. And I remember the first meeting we had, I said, okay, it was a whole consortium. Can you share with me what results you got? And then it's researchers, and they were never satisfied or fully satisfied with the results. And they say, okay, it's not a finished work. It's not something that can be presented, etc. Mm-hmm. And when I explained why this key exploitable results aspect is important, and that it means that they are also valuing their knowledge, their experience, their learning process, then everyone was saying, okay, I have one more thing to add, and so on and so on. Mm-hmm. So it was really tremendous to see how we grow up from a couple of them to really more than 40 of them. And now we are repeating the process in that project again. And I would not be surprised if we see that there is a couple of more of them arising in the meantime. So it's really important that, because I think it's also from the perspective that the research community is a kind of, let's say, more focused on the scientific publications, on the research itself, and maybe is not always fully understanding how this, how the knowledge that they got is also something that can be commercialized, let's say.
That's your translator as a consultant, right?
Yes. Yes, because, yeah, it was very interesting because we had individual meetings with each of the persons who detected the key exploitable result. And after some time, I said, okay, but you have the knowledge of this methodology. You have learned this and that throughout the project. You have developed maybe something internally that helped you to execute the project, but now you actually maybe have a tool that you didn't plan, but you wanted it to make it easier for you or practical or whatever. And they were really like shocked because they didn't see it automatically as something that could be sold, you know, that could really have a commercial value for them, for their organization, for the project at the end of the day. So it's always nice to see, you know, because in the real world, what people want to purchase are the solutions that are making the difference and making the life easier.
Exactly. That's the whole point with the what the money is being thrown at. Thanks. Let's move into the how you design this, how you work with this from the as a fundraiser, as a proposal writer, and as a project manager, yeah. Because this is, we are in the implementation part here, and I have my proposal preparation series called the Timeline series, and there, of course, there's also an exploitation episode of how you do in the proposal. So let's not spend too much time on what you do in the proposal here. It's more important for me for you to share how to make sure that what you wrote in the proposal is something that you then carry. But give me what you have in your notes.
Yeah. Well, I think the most important thing when talking about the exploitation is actually that you start early on in the process. Yeah. And we talked that, of course, it needs to be included in the proposal writing, but on the other side, it's also not about waiting till the end of the project to start working on it or start executing it. It's really a continuous process. And what is really, I would say, crucial is that you know how to address it properly, you know, because you have so many, imagine a consortium of 15 or 20 partners. Each one of them is focused on something that's important for them. If you have an SME, of course, they want some advantage compared to the rest of the SMEs on the market. If you have researchers, they really want to focus more on the research papers, on, this kind of stuff. And they're not worried, for example, about patents or putting the things on the market. So it's a compilation of people with similar interests, but different scopes of, let's say, individual priorities that they have, or wishes that they have from the project.
That's tricky, because we can, of course, we need to call back to the proposal part, because what you sit and do when you write the proposal is you need to make the business model. You need to build the structure for this when you need to carry it out, and there you need to take the temperature on the different stakeholders in the group and the interest and priorities there. Can you sort of sum it up how you work with that in the proposal phase?
Well, whether it's the proposal phase or is the first meeting, let's say, in the beginning of the project, it's always the same approach. You have to have a meeting with people. You have to have like an interview session, like a brainstorming session, where you are trying really to better understand what they want to get from the project. And if they are fully understanding the importance of the exploitation, because no one is maybe interested in it in the beginning. First of all, for example, researchers might not be interested because they want to focus more on some other elements, and they think it's too early, or they don't think that they can still commercialize their knowledge on the market. And companies don't want to focus on it too much because they want to protect the knowledge that they got through the project. And they're hoping that it will be kind of, let's say, a bit neglected, so that they get the market advantage.
Yeah, let's not talk too much about this. It's
true.
Yeah, it's like or they want to do it one-on-one.
That's also possible. I mean, there is of course the confidentiality aspect, and that's why about the exploitation and about intellectual property rights, we have to talk well in advance, and not once the project is finalized or when the results are already obtained, because then it's completely different positions from which they are trying to protect their position. But I would say, first of all, I like to ask them if they are aware about the commercialization aspects of these results. Are they aware what kind of results they have in their hands? And also, we have the exercise about the stakeholders. So we are trying to pinpoint and name the stakeholders to whom they think they can sell it, but not like, okay, I have a training manual and I can sell it to farmers. No. I have a training manual on this and that, and I can sell it to John Doe. You specifically name the person to whom it can be sold. Because only then, if you don't have any name in mind, it's still very vague. And you cannot start actually even to think about the commercialization process. So that's, I would say, very important, to better understand who are the real stakeholders.
When I was in my proposal writing career, that part of my work, this corner was I didn't like very much to do this part of it, because first of all, it was very difficult to get the feedback from the people who were supposed to give feedback, or they were, there was always certain bottlenecks to get the information. And you always felt there was a large element of guessing.
Yes and no. I mean, it really depends who is performing it, because, for example, when I started writing the proposals 13 years ago, I was more coming from the research community and not from the field. And for me, it was very vague, first of all. You can write the work plan, you can write about the work packages, and you understand what you are writing down. But then when it comes to the exploitation, to impact, to outcomes, all of these sounds so similar that you are not sure how to approach it. But in the meantime, I collected a lots of experience and projects. And I would have to say that the biggest impact on my understanding of exploitation was brought through the collaboration with farmers. For those who don't know, we are working quite a lot with farmers directly on the field, trying to help them navigate through the funding schemes to get them the funding. And then farmers are very easy people, they don't...
Very tangible.
Yeah, exactly. So they get always to the point, and it's not about saying posh words and saying 300,000 words if you can say it in 5 words. So at the end of the day, you really have to better understand the market if you really want to do the exploitation properly.
So now we sort of you helped painting the picture for the proposal. Just to sum up the proposal phase, what you need to be aware of, just for us to be able to talk properly about this in relation to the implementation. But what are the most common mistakes, before we move on, what are the most common mistakes made before the project starts?
Well, one of my favorites is when people are just doing the copy paste from the previous proposal.
I did that. That's maybe why I didn't win so many proposals. No, I didn't.
Could be.
But I copied a lot of text, and like
like everyone is developing the work plan on its own, and then when it comes to the work package and communication, dissemination, and exploitation, okay, let's just shift it from the previous proposal.
Don't hire me as a consultant out there ever.
So I would say that's one of the biggest and most common mistakes, because okay, it worked. We got it from the proposal that got approved, but you have to take it into account that proposal was happening 2-3 years ago. In the meantime, we got so many other things happening. Different types of and channels needs to be introduced for example, communication dissemination. The market is completely different, so you have to adjust to the market conditions. And so from that point, that's maybe one of the reasons why these kind of, let's say, copy pastes are not working. And I would say that the European Commission didn't always perceive exploitation as important aspect. Let's be honest. Maybe 10 years ago, it was really not a big deal. It was just a minor aspect. And now it's something that's becoming more and more prominent and a must-have.
They talked about impact, but there was not so much focus on the exploitation.
Well, they are trying to introduce in a lot of calls also the business aspect, which is also connected with the exploitation aspect.
And that's the last 10 years.
Yeah, and actually that should be the whole reason why the Europe is funding something, because if you invest €1 in research, that it gets you additional euro, back. And this can be done only if we are producing the real tools and the real results, and not only the deliverables that are staying in the drawers and that are being read only 3 or 4 times. Once by the author, and second time by the reviewer, and third time by some perhaps enthusiast on the topic. So that's one thing. Another thing is that we promise commercialization in the proposal, but we don't include the partners who knows about it. If you have only a consortium of research institutes or only NGOs, it's not, let's say, an optimal consortium structure to do actually the commercialization. You need someone who knows how to sell, and you need someone who sends invoices. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Because that's it. You have to put an invoice for the work that you are performing.
Yeah.
So that's another one. And maybe the third one that I would say is a connection to the dissemination. Because sometimes we think, I've heard it a couple of times from consortiums, the dissemination is already exploitation, but it's really so far away. What we talked, the dissemination is a megaphone for the exploitation. So it's a next step, completely next step from the dissemination itself. So it's a classical trap, let's say.
Yeah. And then I think what I always remember when it's related to this is that a common mistake is also that, especially if it's if you have a handful of research organizations on board, this fear of sharing what you can earn on it, where the perception from especially research organizations who we cannot, it's because there's a certain, for them there's a certain, it's sort of dirty to talk about earning money on the risk. So this hesitation of just being blunt and saying, look, this is the actual, potential monetizing potential for this technology.
But I would say that this refers primarily to the management and of these research organizations, because they are not tackling this topic maybe in a proper manner, in a way that they are not educating the people, the researchers, what this monetization could mean for the faculty and for them individually. Maybe their department will get more equipment, better equipment. Maybe they can go on more symposiums, the things that are relevant for them. Maybe they can publish it in a better peer-reviewed papers, journals. So this is a matter of, let's say, not understanding where this money will go and how it will be used and what it will mean for them. Yeah, and that's why there is reluctance.
This is actually a nice bridge to the next block we have here, labeled that the Consortium challenge, and that's, we already touched upon it. It's difficult to take the things apart like this and talk. But what we're going to talk about here is the different motivations and perceptions of this, right? What have you jotted down?
How to tackle it?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, sometimes it's very difficult to get honest responses in mutual group meetings. Because you can ask the same question: what results will you have, and how you plan to use it, and how you plan to commercialize it. And you get different responses when it's a group meeting and when it's individual meetings. So first of all, it's like I like to use group meetings from this perspective, just to bring up the topic, to better inform them what the exploitation is about, and that they start to think out of box, let's say. And then for the very concrete cases, then I go to the individual meetings with them, because then you get more honest responses. And then you need someone who will do the puzzle, who will try to find the similarities and see what are complete no-go zones, and then get back to them to let's say, to sort it out for the whole project and for whole consortium. And I also think it's normal, for me as an SME, it's something different that's important than for the NGOs. And we should not run from it, if we are wearing pink glasses and think that everyone wants the same, I think it's just a path to disaster, because it's never the case. And now we are getting back to the communication aspect, because you really need to listen people, not from the perspective of responding yeah, exploitation is super good and we should all do the same, but more from the perspective of understanding what they want so that you can include this in the overall perspective.
What is also an issue at this stage, or like with the consortium challenge, is naturally if you have companies with overlap and interest in the exploitation part. And here we're talking IPR, and this is where it always gets crunching time in the consortium in the
Yes.
preparation phase, because you need to sort this out. You need to cut the cake. Because by principle, from the commission's point of view, the result belongs to the full consortium. And that's not acceptable, of course, for private companies. If it's and the commission knows this. It's just by principle, legally, it's like this. It's the consortium, and then they need to solve out in between them how they want to cut the cake.
Yeah.
So you don't have the commission helping you there. So that needs to be that's the proposal coordinator, aka you, Anna, that needs to moderate these things to find a way through, because each has its interest, and sometimes it's rough meetings. Some of the roughest meetings I've been having.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
when they say, but then we leave. Or
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, like,
No,
or they
I
bring
com-
lawyers, stuff like this. It's
yeah, of course. I mean, at the end of the day, again, it's normal because you're trying to protect your part of the cake, let's say.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's much more important to do it properly in the beginning of the project rather towards the end. Because in the beginning of the project, you still don't know how this will end up. It's research, so it can go in both directions. It can be very good results. It can be very lame, or let's say not lame, but nothing specifically happening, it's research. So when you are in a position that is more or less neutral and that you don't know how it can end up, you are being more open to stay neutral, to have some rights, but also to be able to share some rights as well. And when it's really cooking, and when you have some very good results that are maybe putting a lot of market advantage in your case, then you don't want to step up not even a millimeter. And then it's really becoming, it can be awful, let's say, because indeed the lawyers are being included and so on. So I would advise to do it early in the process.
Let's go on to the beating heart section of this conversation, because we need to move into when the project is actually rolling. We sort of sketched now. Next section here, project result to real adoption. So the project is rolling. So tell me, Anna, what did you dot down here? What happens in the exploitation corner when the project is actually rolling? When are the different actions? What happens in the early phase of the project? What is need to be aware of, and so on and so forth?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think that we are often writing proposals, but also the deliverables for the reviewers, for the evaluators.
Oh, yeah.
Of the report.
Yeah. That's you right up against what they're going to approve.
Yeah, because you want your proposal to be approved. You want your deliverables to be approved. But on the other side, it doesn't necessarily mean that this perfect deliverable with perfect alignments, with perfect images will result with market adaptation. And that's the thing, because I'm in entrepreneurship for 13 years, and I can tell you that the perfectionist is not one of the things that can help you in the entrepreneurship, in the market. You have to think fast, you have to adopt fast. It doesn't have to be perfect to make it workable. And so from that point, it sometimes is, let's say, that we are spending a lot of hours to produce a perfect deliverable. That's like, like a PDF final version 7, really, really final approved version. And at the end of the day, you have something like a tool or something that no one outside that project will be using.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very important, if we want real adoption, to understand what the real environment is asking for.
Mm-hmm.
If you remember, earlier on, I mentioned that I asked partners, do you know the exact person to whom you could sell this
Yep.
tool or something?
Mm-hmm.
Now that person comes in mind again, because then I ask, okay, if you need to sell that to that person, what kind of other things you need to have in order really to put the price on it? Do you have a full solution? Do you have only part of solution? Do you have only maybe 10% of the total solution? It really makes a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And then based on the type of the projects that we are participating in, then we can say, okay, this project resulted with only 10% of the approach to the market, and we need another one to get further in the process. And that's also normal, because there is another myth which is really awful nowadays in the research community and the proposal writing community, and that's that we need to have the project that is covering everything from 1 to 100%, and all of this done in 4 years' time.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be honest. We are solving some things that we have not been able to solve for decades.
Mm-hmm.
And regardless of our goodwill and some funding obtained, it doesn't mean that we can solve that problem just like that in 4 years' time.
Mm-hmm.
So this kind of, let's say, continuation is something that needs to be taken into account, because maybe this consortium was good for the starting point, but then for the second phase of this product development, you need different consortium. You need different setup of environment, to better approach the market. So I would certainly say that the continuation is important, and that the orientation towards the real field results should be a priority.
Yeah, because so here, when you implement, you put something in the proposal, you check with your partners, if you as a proposal writer and project manager, you check with them back then. So when that's being put into reality, then it's a marketing strategy almost, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. But we are always, maybe it's because of my background, that we are always putting the marketing and first of all, the market analysis.
Yeah.
Market analysis throughout this whole process. And the stakeholder analysis is a special thing, which is also very connected with the exploitation pathway, which is also going throughout the whole project lifetime. And then at the end of the day, in some cases, we also include the marketing strategies. We did it also now in one of the Horizon projects, and it really helped 2 different organizations to better understand how to market the products that they have been developing in completely different regions, completely different products. But really to put it from the perspective, how to shape the message, how to organize the narrative, what to take into account from the perspective of costs, this kind of stuff. So it's a compilation of everything, I would say. But the worst case scenario is that we say we have the exploitation in terms that there is an Excel file with the key exploitable results, and the lean canvas template or draft. That's not exploitation. That's nothing at the end of the day. It's the real exploitation is whether someone from consortium is earning money from the results of the project or not.
And tell me, because you are very experienced in implementing projects, do you have sort of a standard rhythm in the phases of the project where, so the first phase, let's say it's a 3-year project and make it easy. So break it down into 3 years. First year, if you have a let's say it's a demonstration, a project with demonstration activities or pilot. So first part of the project is always a lot about getting data or models or collecting information often, to be able to carry out the activities that you will need to end up in the practical part of the project. So in that first phase, do you do anything on the exploitation side?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. But we don't do it in the first month of the project, let's put it that way. We do it towards the end of the first year. Let's say from 8 to 12th month of the project lifetime.
Okay.
The reason why we don't do it earlier is because partners are so much focused on just starting up the whole process, and they are not thinking about the final result. But after, let's say, a couple of months, we start to introduce the subject. So that is the first thing. And then we give them more like an educational point. It's a group meeting. We say, okay, there is an exploitation in the proposal text as well, and we need to cover it. And do you know what the exploitation is really about? And do you have something in mind? This kind of stuff. And then after, let's say, a couple of months, we set up the first interview with them. It's individual interviews. And we go with them through Lean Canvas. It's also known as the business model canvas. And the second thing is the exploitation pathway. And at that moment, there is still quite a lot of question marks. First of all, do I have it? Do I know it? How to address this or that topic, etc. And after that meeting, we send all the notes to them. They confirm it, and then towards the end of the project, if it's a 3-year project lifetime, then maybe around month 28, approximately month 30th, we start to do the discussion again. Could you please check the things that we have written down already? Were there some changes? Do you see that something is missing? Did we completely missed the scope of what you have been developed at the end of the day? So it's really going throughout the project lifetime.
Now, to be able to exploit, you need to have something to show for. So one thing is the preparatory work in your marketing strategy, right? But so let's say the last year, do you then move into inviting, let's just keep with the idea that this is a demonstration pilot project. Do you then invite possible target groups or clients for presentations of what it is? Or what is the nature of the activities in that corner sort of towards the end? Because that's, I guess, it's the people, that's sort of the peak of the exploitation part, right? When you have people come around, if they're actually interested in this as a service or product.
Yeah, I would say that this depends from project to project and from coordinator to coordinator, how much they want to tackle and also what kind of TRL are we talking about. It's always much easier if we are talking about higher TRLs, because then it's really putting the things on the market or close to putting the things on the market, and you can showcase something. There is a lab equipment over there. There is for example, we had now in the project new seed varieties that have been produced. So we could make a bread. We could make a bread with them. You can make a risotto, with this kind of new products, let's say, that are being produced. So it's much more tangible. And of course, if it's tangible, then it's more understandable, let's say, for people. So in that perspective, we are organizing different events with stakeholders who are then assessing, or let's say giving us the remarks about the whole thing. But if it's low TRLs, then it gets a bit more complicated.
It's at least it's tricky, right? It's not because it's not as tangible like that. You're like invite a
Yes.
client. Do you want to buy it? Yes.
Yeah, you're more like showing him a potential of something rather than the final product.
Does it get more than into sort of, is this something you would be interested in investing in further development of towards the fine? Is that kind of the track you take in the exploitation?
Yes, something similar. But what I would also like to mention is that often stakeholders are perceived as someone who will get the information at the end of the project lifetime. And of course, when we need info, then we contact them and they are there to help us. But that's not actually so easy, or that it doesn't work like that. In every consortium where I participated, I was really strongly fighting to make sure that the stakeholder analysis and stakeholders engagement is going through from day one till the last day of the project. And that means quite a lot of different workshops, brainstorming sessions, etc. And it also means that you have to adjust to the needs of the stakeholders. What it means. If I need some information on the exploitation, whether they are interested in this product or not, then I also need to give something in return to them. Why would they otherwise spend 1, 2, 3, 4 hours to help me? It's, there is quite a lot of projects running on a national, regional, European level, and everyone is asking some kind of information from them. And they don't have time. We are talking with SMEs who need to earn for salaries. We are talking about farmers who need to harvest because the hail is coming, So we need to make sure that we give an added value in this whole process. Whether it's some let's say, information that they will get and others will not get, whether it's some free samples, whether it's something else, but they need to get a good hook, let's say, to keep them involved and engaged. And another important aspect is that once they are involved in this process, they want to learn more. So you cannot just invite them for one workshop and say, okay, I will keep you informed, and then don't keep them informed. Then they feel like really betrayed, and they will not participate in further process. Yeah. So I would say that the stakeholders' involvement really needs to go from the day one till the last day. And we had it in some projects when we were, for example, developing the bio-based fertilizers. We started in the phase when we didn't have the product. We only had the input streams. And we asked the farmers, what do you need? What kind of fertilizer do you need? What makes the biggest problem for you in the field? And then we have been upgrading that fertilizer according to the needs of the farmers. And of course, at the end, they are willing even to buy it because they feel like it's their own, they help to develop it. So it's like a shared ownership.
But Anna, it's the same in all aspects of life, right? Personal life, in aspects of if you have a stake in something, if you feel that you have been involved in something or have been engaged in something actively, and that's been recognized, then you are much more likely to be involved,
of course.
To feel like continuing with being involved. And it's like this is what marketing experts they crave for. This is what commercial bureaus, whatever this is about. That's when you get them hooked, so they keep buying more, because they feel a personal connection.
It's about making a relationship, and also I think there is that's maybe something that's a bit frustrating for me. But when we are talking about marketing and sales, there is quite a lot of now materials available and talks that you need to like hook them, but hook from the negative perspective. Like you have to just trigger the attention, and then they will purchase it, and that's it. I don't think that's the whole point, because for decades, for centuries, the whole sales was focused on building up the reputation and building up the relationship, and then it was a word of mouth, and then everyone were going to the same baker because we knew that he was good, and this kind of stuff. And I think now, with so many different things happening on the market, we are returning back to the basis, and we still, there is something that's called Google reviews, right? And when you're going to some restaurant, you are in a new city, you're going to some restaurant, you are checking the Google reviews, right?
Yeah.
Because you want a word of mouth, even if it's people who you don't know directly, but you don't want to experience something bad on your skin. And that's why, from the psychological point, you want a word of mouth. The same thing should be happening in sales, in marketing, and at the end of the day, in the exploitation, because you want a word of mouth that it's working properly. And it's much easier if you see it in real field rather than if you just see that in the lab, or that if it's just a chart in some deliverable, let's say.
Yeah, and of course, but it's each project to its own, right? Because you have, it's very tangible in your corner, right? In the agro bioeconomy corner. If we talk big energy projects where it's expensive what they do, right? Energy efficiency in industry, for instance, these kind of technologies, or hydrogen, or whatever, ocean energy, stuff like that's very expensive. That's a different exploitation approach, but the basic principle is the same. That engagement with the target group, because you are an EU project, so you're not a normal economic entity in that respect on an open market. You have received taxpayers' money to develop something and de-risk that investment to be realized. This means that you have a little bit more buffer in your outreach to who is supposed to pick up this, but it's still important. It's still the cornerstone of what you do, that when you finish that project, there is some line, either be it investment for further development, or of next stage funding, be whatever, national funding, regional funding, or be it an actual product, as expensive as it might be, for someone to be interested in moving on with it.
Yeah, but that's the whole thing, sometimes it can even be like a regulation guidelines, or like a white paper or something like that, but at the end of the day, it should be something tangible, because if we end up at the deliverable stage, it's really like, I feel it like it's not the full, how to say, potential of this work, of this whole research community that has been invested thousands and thousands of work hours, of equipment purchases, etc., are not really being used to the full. So from that point, even if it's the big research projects or smaller projects, we need to find a way to really put things in the perspective of the real world, and not only to just create a deliverable and that's it.
Now, I'm not going to stop this conversation if there are more important things that we still need to talk about. But I think that we sort of covered it. Is there anything else in this corner? Because we need to also talk about life after the project, but we sort of already touched it. So actually we can just move into, because this is what we're talking about now. So what happens with that, like investment that you have received, so to say, the funding represents. How do you, because that's also a bit of a consultancy from your behalf, right? You help the
Yes.
consortium on what happens when we are not partners anymore here. So how do you attack that? Can you take us through the most important elements that you work with?
Yeah. Well, I would say that when we are talking about the project after life, let's say after the project ends, what is the most important are the ownership and the maintenance.
Yeah.
So first of all, the ownership from the perspective whether it's always the same ownership, and does it reduce or increase over a period of time? From this point, the IPR, let's say, is very important so that everyone is on board, with this. And the second important thing is actually the financial sustainability regarding the maintenance. So imagine one of the most easiest, I would say, examples is the project website. So the project website that says in the proposal that it will stay active for 4 more years, and I would compare it. So it's an unmaintained project website or platform. It's, I would say, the equivalent to the gym membership in January. You start in January all fresh and fully ready to get your summer body, and then it's forgotten by February or March. So it's the same thing at the end of the day.
Anna, it's the when funding ends, interest fades a problem. No matter how commercial or market close that the project is, it's like this.
Yeah. That's why I say it's. But this is something that needs to be taken into consideration already when proposal writing. Because in that stage, people are willing. I promise, people are willing to contribute more because they want to get the funding. So they don't mind investing some money as well.
Did you, for this website issue, it's horrible. Did you ever push some of the partners to say, you establish it on we shift to your permanent website, your company website after the project, and you host it there afterwards? Have you ever followed that track?
There was all sorts of the solutions, let's put it that way. But whenever we are talking about this, because I would say I'm really coming from the practical point of view. So already in the proposal phase, I'm trying to negotiate some combinations, who needs to do it, to reserve the, let's say, money, or to take it into account when doing the budgeting, that they also need to cover it afterwards. But this is just one of the, let's say, small examples, and that's why I think it's also good that the Europe is actually investing in the platforms for the sharing of the results of the projects. Because in other words, so we have been spending, as I mentioned, thousands of hours of research on something, and then it's published on the website, which is active for 1 or 2 years. And after that, a part of that knowledge is a bit lost, and it's such a pity.
It's not a bit lost. It's there, but you cannot access it anymore and that's the thing. And I know one of my other guests, it's been a while ago, but I remember that someone said the commission, they don't want more platforms. The 10,000 platforms have been created because it's so easy to put into a proposal as a tangible thing. We'll create a platform. 10,000 platforms within all kinds of socioeconomic areas that are not being maintained when the project is gone, right?
Of course, because let's be honest. So I have been developing some applications, apps for us internally to help us with the process of, let's say, funding mechanisms and searching for the calls. And I will just give you one really stupid example.
Hit me.
Yeah, so we have been developing this with the IT person, of course. I'm not an IT person. I don't know anything about the coding and this kind of stuff. And then there was a, let's say, expiration. So it was running. It was perfectly running, smoothly running. And we get every day the information, notifications that what the calls are published and so on. And then there was no news for 3 or 4 days. And I didn't even notice it because there is so many other things that you have to do in a day. And my IT guy said, Anna, do you know that your credit card was expired? You know, so it was, for example, till the end of June, and then automatically you need a new bank card with a new date, expiry date. And the whole process was stopped, you know? So the whole analysis of calls, etc., was stopped. So what I want to say is that you need people who are experienced in their field, and you cannot do it on your own properly, you know. And that's why it's very important to keep that in mind. And regarding the platforms, we are doing what we need to do to get the proposal, and not to get to the really good results. And that's the sad truth.
It's the nature of the system.
Yeah. And on the other side, the European Commission, I think, has each and every right to set up the platforms from the perspective that, but again, it should be then the platforms that are really active, that are really, you know, adjusted to the real needs of people, of researchers, of stakeholders, of whatever. Because yeah, sometimes it's just an administrative thing that you have to click, and not something that people are using actually.
I don't have experience myself with projects that has been run to the end and then dealing with that afterwards. So I can only listen carefully to what you say. But it is, or what other guests have told me around concerning these things, right? But it's it's if it's something that is something, it's a little bit like with the products that we sell as companies, Anna, right? Because if somebody wants it, then it lives. If nobody wants to pay for my podcast services, then I die. Then I have to do something else. And it's a little bit obviously it's the same with the results of a project, because if it has a value, if there's a market for it, then it will also find a way.
Yeah, but it's also like sometimes it's also about the format, you know, because I have been working, for example, in the Ferti Manure project, again, on the exploitation, business planning, modeling. And over there, the team was really amazing, and they developed multiple bio-based fertilizers. And this kind of information, some of them are also publicly available. But the format of the deliverable is not something that a normal technologist or a farmer will read. So it's still kind of, let's say, an obstacle between the real field and the research community. And then, for example, we advised and we prepared, it was an additional thing, it was an extra effort to produce the one-pagers, to put all the information from the project about that bio-based fertilizer in one single page. And then mention the link to the deliverable if they want to go more into depth, you know. But you need to find a way to bridge this kind of, let's say, research on one side, technology on the second side, and the real field experience on the last page.
right, thanks. I think that's it. No, is there anything else?
That's it, I think.
Standards. You've been with me for a while now, Anna, so you know what's hitting. We have the reflections and advice, and then we have the toughest challenge. So first thing, reflections. What do you have?
Yeah, I think it's we already mentioned quite a lot of it. I think we need to start with the exploitation from the day one, and also what is really important is to name the user, to better understand who is your market and what kind of things this user needs or it has.
Mm-hmm.
And to have the intellectual property issues detected and let's say communicated well in advance, so that you don't have a lot of problems later in the process. And yeah, that's it. Try to work towards the real results and not necessarily, not only the deliverables,
Mm-hmm.
I would say. So it's very short. Just that, and everything is working properly.
No. And I guess we have been reflecting throughout the episode, right? The grand toughest challenge.
Yeah.
Working with exploitation in the implementation.
Well, one of the challenges is that in the beginning of the project, you are already trying to convince people that they need to take into account something that will get at the end of the project.
Mm-hmm.
We are dealing with a lot of deadlines. We are very busy people, and now I'm coming with a meeting about something that will come in 3 years' time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very challenging, but it's not impossible. And I think that the education and this knowledge transfer about the importance of the exploitation is something that also takes time. There is a good saying, nothing comes overnight. And I think it's the same with the understanding of different subjects. So from that point, I would still do it the way I do it early on in the process. And but it can be quite challenging, to keep people motivated, and also to have the full understanding from their side why this is important, not only for the project or for the reviewer, but also for them, for their organization,
Mm-hmm.
for their commercialization of this knowledge experience that they have compared to the competitors.
Yeah. Thanks.
That's it.
Yeah. I'm just going to land the plane as always. Dear listeners, I really hope, because this is why I do all this. I really hope that that this episode is helping you, everybody who sits out there as a project manager, helping you and giving you critical mass and input on how to handle this corner of the implementation, and also to maybe avoid that things run into too many bottlenecks, because you cannot avoid them, but at least you have here some advice and some heads up, so to say, on what to be aware of. Now, if you want more information, if you want more sound content, you go to my website, thegrand.eu. Of course, this implementation series there, I think this is episode number, I forgot, I think it's number 12 or 13. So there's already quite some episodes covering the implementation part of EU funding. Check it out. And check out the site in general, because I have so much content there that should be interesting for you, if you're interested in what we're talking about here. So thanks in advance for that. And if you think when you're there, this is fantastic, how can I support this guy? That's very simple. There's an online form on every single website on my website, and there you can join my email list. That's the best way you can support an independent podcaster like me. Otherwise, of course, connect with me on LinkedIn. That's where the fun happens. That's where the flow is. That's where I like. That's where I share. And that's also where I pick up a lot of guests. Anna, my dear guest here today, was picked up on LinkedIn. So it's that is what can follow from that kind of activity if you join me there. Also, go like the Grant page. It's a community. I try to build a community. There's more than 500 followers now, and still rising continuously. So yeah. And then look out for my website. I am creating WhatsApp groups. I have some WhatsApp groups to sort of community build. I will flash that also on LinkedIn. So if you can join these things if you want to exchange in between the community. No. And it's enough information to my listeners. Of course, I will also have there will be a link to Anna's LinkedIn profile here, of course. So yeah.
I just wanted to thank you, Niels, for inviting me again, and I hope that some of my experiences will be helpful to the audience. And if they have any questions or comments, feel free to contact me on LinkedIn.
Thank you. It's incredibly kind of you to help me and support me here. So with the information for the listeners. So thanks for that. Now let's say goodbye to dear listeners. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Grant. All the Grant episodes have their own site on the Grant website. You'll find the link to the episode site where you listen to your podcast. On the site for this episode, you will find a link to Ana-Marija's LinkedIn site. Further, you'll find a link to her company IPS Konzalting and, of course, a link to the rest of the implementation series. Next week, it is time to have a look at how to write proposals for the Innovation Fund. You can indeed look forward to that.